For 6 years, I worked as a ranger for the U.S. Forest Service. The vast forests, the chirping of birds, the scent of pine. I thought it was a dream job. But after the summer of 2019, everything changed. It all began with a series of missing persons reports. Over 3 weeks, 5 hikers had vanished. No trace, no clues. Just empty tents and abandoned cars. A few colleagues and I were assigned to comb through a particularly dense part of the forest. It was during this expedition that I stumbled upon a narrow trail I had never seen before. I felt an unsettling urge to follow it. The path, mostly masked by overgrown foliage, led me to a clearing where I found an old run-down cabin. Outside the cabin, children's clothes were strewn about, some stained with something dark. Pushing open the door, a putrid stench hit me. The room was adorned with strange symbols drawn in what looked like dried blood, and on a table in the center lay a leather-bound book titled The Pact. I opened it and began reading. The book described a cult that believed in a deity that resided in these woods. They would offer it sacrifices, hoping to be granted supernatural abilities. The sacrifices, those who dared to intrude upon its domain. Horrified, I reported my findings to the authorities. But when we returned, the cabin was gone as if it never existed. They believed I was hallucinating from the stress. Then, the dreams began. Every night I'd wake up in that clearing standing before the cabin. Inside, shadowy figures chanted around a fire, beckoning me to join them. One morning, I woke up with a painful mark on my arm, one of the symbols from the cabin. Panic consumed me, and I decided to confront this nightmare head-on. I returned to that clearing with a camera, hoping to capture evidence, but the cabin remained elusive. Days turned to nights, and I found myself lost. Hungry, thirsty, and exhausted, I stumbled upon a campsite, but it was eerily familiar. It was my campsite, or an exact replica of it. But I wasn't alone. Sitting by the fire was another me. He greeted me calmly, explaining he was a result of a choice I never made, a path I never took, a version of me that had joined the cult. They had been granted the abilities they sought. They could manipulate time, create alternate realities, and more. But the deity demanded a price, a new recruit. I was their target. Terrified, I fled, running blindly. Suddenly, I felt a sharp tug and realized my doppelganger had grabbed me. Just as the world began to spin, a gunshot echoed, and my captor fell limp. It was Jake, one of my colleagues. He'd followed me after noticing my erratic behavior and had kept a distance watching. We made our way back to civilization. The forest was declared off-limits, and I resigned, wanting to put as much distance between the forest and me. Now, as I recount my experience, I realize the ordeal might be far from over. Last night, I heard chanting outside my window and a familiar voice whispering, "Join us." Even now, as I glance at my arm, I notice the symbol has become more pronounced, and I can't help but feel that somewhere in those woods an alternate version of me is waiting for the right moment to merge our realities. Over the next few days, I became a recluse, jumping at shadows, flinching at every creak of my home. I felt as if the walls were closing in. Every night, the whispers grew louder, the chants more intense. I began finding symbols etched onto windows, scribbled on my bathroom mirror, even embroidered on my clothes. I decided to seek help, thinking perhaps a psychiatrist could offer some solutions. But during our session, as I narrated my tale, I noticed a change in Dr. Avery's demeanor. As I rolled up my sleeve to show her the mark, her face turned pale and she quickly ended our meeting. Confused and paranoid, I decided to dig into the past of the woods. Records from the late 1800s spoke of a community that had once lived in those forests. They were led by an enigmatic leader, known only as the Seer. This Seer, they believed, was an intermediary between our world and a darker, more sinister realm. As I continued my research, a particular photograph caught my eye. It was Dr. Avery, looking exactly the same as she does now, standing beside the Seer. Terrified, I decided to confront her. As I barged into her office, I found her calmly sipping tea. "You shouldn't have come back," she remarked. I realized then that the tea's aroma was familiar. It was the same scent I had smelt at the cabin. She went on to explain that she too was once marked by the cult. Her eternal youth, Her prominent position in society was the boon she received. But the deity didn't just want sacrifices. It desired souls bound to it for eternity, expanding its influence. The more I resisted, the more the deity would come for me. But she proposed an alternative. If I willingly gave myself to the cult, I could have any life I desired. Riches, fame, power, all were within reach. Desperate, I fled from the town, trying to escape the nightmare. But every town I went to, every corner I turned, the symbols followed, the whispers echoed. One fateful evening in a small-town diner, I met an elderly woman named Agatha. She claimed to recognize the mark on my arm, stating her great-grandmother had the same. Agatha narrated tales of her ancestor, who fought the cult, harnessing the power of ancient rituals. With Agatha's guidance, I prepared to confront the deity. We formed protective circles, recited incantations, and summoned the deity. It manifested as a swirling vortex of shadows, with voices echoing from its depths. Using the rituals, I managed to trap the entity in a crystal prism. Agatha warned that the prism must never be broken, and the entity inside would constantly strive to escape. Now, I live in solitude, guarding the prism. The weight of my responsibility is heavy, knowing that a single misstep could unleash unspeakable horror upon the world. Every night I hear the whispers, the promises, the temptations, but I stand firm, determined never to let the entity break free. And so, my life has become an eternal vigil, a silent battle against the dark forces that once sought to claim me. The nights grew darker and the days seemed shorter. Time, as I once understood it, began to distort. It felt as if the prism and the entity inside were warping the very fabric of reality around me. I began marking the days on my cabin wall, a crude calendar to keep track of my own sanity. One evening, a knock echoed through the cabin. Cautious, I opened the door to find a young woman, drenched from the rain, seeking shelter. Hesitant but feeling a moral obligation, I let her in. Her name was Ilara, and she claimed she had gotten lost during a hike. There was something oddly familiar about her, but I couldn't place it. As nights turned into days, Ilara and I grew closer. She seemed intrigued by my life as a ranger and my responsibility as the keeper of the prism. I, on the other hand, was drawn to her stories of the world outside, a world I had distanced myself from. One evening as we sat by the fireplace, Ilara's eyes fixated on the prism. "It's beautiful," she whispered. When I turned to reply, her hand shot out, grabbing the prism. A flood of memories hit me. Ilara was the embodiment of the deity, a guise to infiltrate my sanctuary. She had played the long game, earning my trust. The cabin walls began to shake, and the protective symbols I had painted started to fade. Ilara's voice, now a cacophony of whispers, chanted an ancient spell. The prism glowed intensely before shattering into a million pieces. From its depths, the entity emerged, larger and more terrifying than before. Ilara, or the deity within her, laughed maniacally. "You thought you could trap me forever. I am eternal." Desperate, I remembered a chant Agatha once whispered to me, a last resort incantation if the prism ever broke. As the shadows converged on me, I began reciting the chant. The cabin lit up with blinding light, and a force pushed the entity back. The ensuing battle was a blur of light and shadows, chants and screams. Hours, days, years seemed to pass in those intense moments. And then, suddenly, it was over. The entity was pushed into a corner of the room, smaller and seemingly weaker. Using the remnants of the shattered prism, I formed a new cage for the entity. Though not as strong as the original prism, it would hold, for now. Ilara's form lay motionless on the floor, the deity no longer in control. As her eyes fluttered open, she looked around, confused. The deity had used her as a puppet, erasing her memories of the events. With the immediate threat contained, I knew I couldn't stay. The prison I had constructed was weak, and I had to find a more permanent solution. Bidding Ilara a painful farewell, I ventured out, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders once more. The world outside was a different place. Technology had advanced, and the forests I once knew had receded. But legends of the forest deity persisted. Every so often, Hikers and adventurers would go missing, only fueling the myths. And so, I continue my journey, searching for a way to end the entity's reign of terror once and for all, while being constantly reminded that the line between reality and nightmare is perilously thin. As the years went on, I took it upon myself to be the sentinel of these woods. The U.S. Forest Service kept assigning more people, but I ensured they never got close to the heart of the forest. That heart held the entity, waiting and watching, hoping for its next victim. I spent the better part of my career researching and connecting with shamans, witches, and elders of ancient communities, seeking methods to suppress the entity's power. My home became a sanctuary of wards, charms, and runes, all aimed to contain the dark force. Elara was always in my thoughts. Each protective measure I took, every ritual I performed, was in her name. Stories began to spread about me too. Many viewed me as the ranger who'd gone mad, talking of spirits and entities. Others thought I was the protector of the woods, keeping at bay the darkness that threatened to spill into the world. Despite the mixed opinions, I garnered respect from many forest communities. They knew the importance of my mission and often lent their support, sharing their own protective practices and lore. But with every protective measure, the entity fought back tenfold. Animals would turn rabid without warning, attacking anything in their path. Trees would bleed a dark viscous liquid, and shadows would dance unnaturally during the darkest nights. Then, one day, Elara's journal came into my possession. I found it in a hidden compartment of the prism, carefully preserved. Her entries spoke of love and hope, but slowly turned to fear and despair. She wrote about the entity's attempts to seduce her with promises of eternal life and power. However, one entry stood out. "He's trying to protect me, but the call of the darkness is strong. I can feel it pulling me, whispering promises. But it also wants him. He is its true prize. I fear I may be the weapon it uses to get to him." It was clear that Elara knew of the impending betrayal. My heart ached as I read her innermost thoughts, the pain she felt being torn between love and an ever-growing dark force. A network of those who believed in my cause began to form. Witches, shamans, and even a few scientists who'd come close to the truth. We brainstormed, combining old-world rituals with new-age technology to create barriers around the forest. We set up surveillance and alarms, hoping to be alerted if the entity tried to break free. But as with all battles of good versus evil, there are losses. Many of my allies began to disappear only to reappear as puppets of the entity, their eyes blackened and their souls gone. I would often find them at the edge of the forest, singing Elara's lullaby, a grim reminder of the danger I was facing. Through all the trials, the love and memory of Elara kept me going. The sacrifice she made was for love, and I would ensure it wasn't in vain. But nothing prepared me for that cold winter night. The years of constant running, hiding, and battling the entity had taken a toll on my body and mind. The stress of guarding such a dark power was like a parasite, slowly eating away at my health and sanity. Even with the advancements in technology, there was nowhere truly safe. The entity, though contained, always found a way to breach the barriers I constructed. One cold winter night, as I slept in a makeshift camp in the heart of the forest, I was awoken by a soft lullaby. It was Elara's voice singing the same haunting tune I'd heard all those years ago. My heart raced. I quickly grabbed the makeshift prism, holding it tight. The surrounding trees started to wither and die, their leaves turning black and falling to the ground, creating a dark blanket around me. Elara's apparition appeared before me, her eyes devoid of the warmth and humanity I once knew. She had become a puppet, a mere shell controlled by the entity. She whispered, "You can't escape me. You never could." I felt a sharp pain in my chest, looking down to see tendrils of darkness wrapping around my body, constricting tighter and tighter. They burned my flesh, every touch like 1,000 needles piercing my skin. I tried to chant, to push the entity back, but the words wouldn't come out. As the darkness consumed me, the last thing I saw was Elara's tear-filled eyes, a silent apology for the betrayal she had been forced into. The entity's laughter echoed in the distance as my vision faded to black. My demise served as a chilling reminder to the people of the world. The story of the ranger who tried to protect humanity from an unspeakable evil became a legend. People would recount tales of the brave soul who faced the forest deity, of the betrayal by the one he cared for, and of the ultimate sacrifice he made. Some say that on cold winter nights you can still hear the soft lullaby sung by Alara, forever trapped in her role as the entity's puppet. In the shadows of the night, if our tales from unsettling horror stories gave you a fright, press like and let it be known. Subscribe, so you're never alone in this haunting journey, and share, so others too can be wary. Until our next sinister tale, stay dark, dear listener.